Mutton yesterday, mutton today, and blimey if it don't look like mutton again tomorrow, said one of the trolls. Never blinking bit of man flesh have we had for long enough, said a second. What the well William was a thinking of to be bring us into these pots all beats me, and the drink running short. And what more? He said, jogging the elbow William, who was taking a pull at his jug. William choked. Shut your mouth, he said as soon as he could. You can't expect the folk to stop here forever just to be at by you. And Bert, you at a village and half you between ya. Since we come down from the mountains, how much more do you want? And the time's been up our way when you head home. You had said, thank you, Bill, for a nice bit of all-fight bally mutton like this is. He took a big bite of a sheep leg he was roasting and wiped his lips on his sleeve. Yes, I am afraid trolls do behave like that, even though with only one head each. After hearing all of this, Bilbo ought to have done something at once. Either he should have gone back quietly and warned his friends that there were 3 fair-sized trolls at hand, in a nasty mood, quite likely to try roast dwarf or even pony for a change, or else he should have done a bit of good cook burgling at a really first-class end. Legendary burglar would at this point have picked the troll's pockets. It is nearly worth a while. If you can manage it, pinched a berry mutton off the spits, purloined the beer, and walked off without their noticing him. Others more practical, but with less professional pride, would perhaps have stuck a dagger into each of them before they observed it. Then the night could have been spent cheerily. Bilbo knew it. He had read of good many things he had never seen or done. He was very much alarmed as well as disgusted. He wished himself 100 miles away, and yet somehow he could not go straight back to Thorin and the company empty-handed. So he stood and hesitated in the shadows of the various burglarious proceedings. He had heard of picking trolls' pockets seemed the least difficult. So at last he crept behind a tree, just behind William. Bert and Tom went off to the barrel. William was having another drink. Then Bilbo plucked up courage and put his little hand in William's enormous pocket. There was a purse in it, and as big as Bilbo's bag. Ha, he thought, warming to his new work as he lifted it carefully out. This is a new beginning. It was trolls' purses are the mischief, and this was no exception. Arrow, are you? It squeaked, and as it left the pocket, and William turned round at once and grabbed Bilbo by the neck, and before he could duck behind a tree, "Blimey, Bet, look what I've copped," said William. "What is it?" said the others, coming up. Let me if I know. What are ya? Bilbo Baggins, a hobbit, said poor Bilbo, shaking all over, and wondered how to make owl noses before they throttled him. "A burra hobbit?" said they, a bit startled. Trolls are slow and upstake, and might suspicious about anything new to them. "What's a burra hobbit got to do with my pocket anyway?" said William. "And can you cook 'em?" "You can try," said Bert, picking up a skewer. "He wouldn't make above a mouseful," said William, who had already had a fine supper, not when he was skinned and boned. "Perhaps there are more like round him about, and we might make a pie," said Bert. "Here you are there any more of you sort of sneaking in these hayhoods, you nasty little rabbit?" And he looked at the hobbit's furry feet, and he picked him up by the toes and shook him. "Yes, lots," said Bilbo, but before he remembered not to give his friends away. No, none at all, not one," he said immediately afterwards. "What you mean?" said Bert, holding him way up by the head this time. "What I said is," said Bilbo, gasping, "and please don't cook me, kind sirs. I'm a good cook myself, and cook better than I cook. If you see what I made, I'll cook beautifully for you, a perfectly beautiful breakfast for you. If only you wouldn't have me for supper." "Poor little Blatte," said William. He had already had as much as supper as he could hold. Also, he had lots of beer. "Poor little Blatte, let me go." "Not till he says what he means by lots and none at all," said Bert. "I don't want to have me throat cut in my sleep. Hold his toes in the fire till he talks." "I won't have it," said William. "I caught him anyway." "You're a fat fool, William," said Bert, "as I've said afore this evening. And you are a lout. And I won't take that from you." "Bill Huggins," said Bert, and put his fist in William's eye. Then there was a gorgeous row. Bilbo had just enough wits left when Bert dropped him on the ground to scramble out of the way of their feet. Before they were fighting like dogs and calling one another all sorts perfectly true applicable names in very loud voices. Soon they were locked in one another's arms and rolling nearly into the fire, kicking and thumping while Tom whacked at them both with a branch to bring them to their senses, and that of course only made them madder than ever. That would have been in the time for Bilbo to have left, but his poor little feet had been squashed in Bert's big paw, so he had no breath in his body, and his head was going round, so there he lay for a little while panting, just outside the circle of the firelight. Right in the middle of the fight up came Balin. Dwarves have heard noises from distance, and after waiting for some time for Bilbo to come back or to hoot like an owl, they started off by one to creep towards the light as quietly as they could. No sooner did Tom see Balin come into the light then he gave an awful whoo. Trolls simply detest the very slight of dwarves. Bert and Bilbo stopped fighting immediately and sacked Tom quick, they said, before Balin, who was wondering where in all these commotion Bilbo was, knew what was happening. A sack was over his head and he was down. "There's more to come yet," said Tom, "or I'm mighty mistook. Lots and not all it is," said he. "No burra hobbits, but lots of these here dwarves. That's about the shape of it." "I reckon you're right," said Bert, "and we'd best get out of the light." And so they did, with sacks in their hand that they used for carrying off mutton and other plunder. They waited in the shadows as each dwarf came up and looked at the fire and the spilled jugs and the gone Mutton. In surprise, pop went a nasty smell sack over his head, and he was together. Soon Dwalin lay by Balin, and Fili and Kili together, and Dori and Nori and Ori all in a heap, and Oin and Glowin and Biffer and Boffer and Bomber piled uncomfortably near the fire. "That'll teach 'em," said Tom, for Bilfer and Bomber had given a lot of trouble and fought like mud, as dwarves will when concerned. Thorin came last, and he was not caught unawares.